The idea is that the journey with the Quran is a lifelong one, and what we want to do at this young age is nurture a love for it and create the ability of our children to connect with the Quran so that they know how to study and they know how to connect and they have a lifelong love for the Quran, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Marina, the founder of Scholastica Islamica. I'm a home educating parent living in Cambridge in the UK, and I create these videos to help benefit other homeschooling parents, educators and Muslim families. Today I'm so excited to share something really close to my heart, and especially now in the month of Ramadan, how to incorporate the Quran in your homeschool. Whether you're homeschooling or you're just looking for ways to incorporate more of the Quran in your children's education, this video is the one for you. Especially now as we're coming to the end of the month of Ramadan, this video will give you lots of ideas for ways to continue that special connection that we have with Ramadan and continue and take that with you in your life and with your children as we go throughout the rest of the year. Laying a solid foundation in the Quran is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to our children. This foundation includes learning proper recitation and tajweed, memorizing portions of the Quran, building Arabic vocabulary, understanding the meaning of the Quran in English or your native language, and most importantly, developing a love and reverence for the Quran. Let's dive into how we can approach each of these in our homes, inshallah. We have a major problem with poor Quran literacy in the Muslim community. Most Muslims wouldn't be able to name more than a handful of surahs, let alone understand their meanings. We desperately need to bridge this gap, and that starts with ourselves. We need to be striving to learn the Quran in ways that will inspire our children to do the same. The best way to infuse the Quran into your children's hearts is by living it yourself. Depending on your family's educational styles and your philosophy, people start teaching the Quran to their children at different ages. I even know of a local Cambridge family who are homeschooling friends of ours who, using their Indonesian heritage and a particular pedagogical approach to Quran, had taught their daughter, who was only 4 years old, more than 2 juz of Quran by memorization and not through reading. She'd memorized by listening to the sound of surahs and copying her mother. So obviously there are many different ways to approach this. In our home, we begin teaching children the Qaida, which is the kind of introduction basics to reading the Arabic of the Quran, alif, ba, ta, going through all the different marks and so on, from around the age of 5 or 6. We kind of tally this with the child's reading readiness, so it's really important that you don't force the child to sit down and to push them to learn Arabic letters when they've only just got on top of the English alphabet, for example, when they're just not ready for it, and it will possibly create negative associations for that child with learning Quran. So make sure to wait in terms of teaching the visual written Arabic language to children until they're really ready for it. As I mentioned, younger children can definitely memorize Quran just by hearing and having those same short surahs repeated to them often. So you could start by teaching a child to recite the Fatiha, even as young as 2 or 3 years old. One resource that we really love as a family, and I'm currently on my 3rd child using the same resource, is the Kitab pen and the accompanying Qaida from Learning Roots. Now, this is not a sponsored video. I just love this product and I wanted to share it. So this is the Read and Rise. The cover might be different now because this is an old version that I bought some years ago, and the accompanying Kitab pen here is fantastic. It creates sound. So what you do is, as you hold the pen and its reader over the words in the Qaida book, it will recite those out loud. And the newer version even has Sheikh Omar Sulaiman reading the Arabic of the Quran. I mean, subhanallah, what a fantastic teacher to have for your kids. So we love to use this. We don't use this as our only Qaida. I find that because there are not loads of examples in the book. For example, if a child is learning the rules of lean, for example, ow, that kind of stuff, there's only a couple of there's like a double page spread for that. Whereas I find that a child will need at least 4 or 5 pages and repeated practice to be able to get that right. So we use this book as a kind of a fun engagement with the Qaida to get the child to really love learning Quran, and especially to practice sounds accurately, which is great if you're not confident with tajweed yourself and you want to have regular access to correct pronunciation. But we use this in conjunction with other Qaida books and other Quran teaching as well. I'm looking forward to, in a future video, sharing a really thorough breakdown of different Qaida resources, things that I've used, things that other people have recommended and used. So keep an eye out for this future video, inshallah. So the next stage is to transition into Quran reading. Once a child has completed a Qaida curriculum of some sort, then they'll be ready to start reading from the Quran itself. Lots of people choose a madrasa, an after-school club or a weekend madrasa, maybe Saturday or Sunday school, where they can send their child to have regular time access to a particular teacher. But as a homeschooling family, we try to take a more flexible approach, and I've made a previous video about the fact that as a family we like to travel to Egypt to undertake some Quran and Arabic studies. So I'll post a link up here for you and also in the description below. Our children, therefore, once they've finished studying the Qaida with me, will go on to take online and in-person lessons with our teacher that we have in Egypt. This has been a game changer for us. And so, to be completely vulnerable with you, I found that my children's kind of resistance to having me teach them was really, really heartbreaking. So I'd been looking forward to teaching them Quran for years, and I'd been studying Tajweed and studying Quran, and I had been teaching in a madrasa as well. So I thought, okay, once I have my children, I'm really looking forward to teaching them. But I found that because I'm, as well as mum, trying to be the teacher, my two oldest children, especially because they are boys, they found that, oh, it's just mum, so they really didn't want to sit down with me to read the Quran. So I really struggled just to get through Qaida with them and get them to learn their short surahs. And so my husband and I, we were kind of brainstorming, and we realized, okay, I think it's better to try to outsource this, because we don't want to create resentment, tension between me and my sons, and also we don't want our children, our boys, to develop kind of a negative association with me always nagging them, or there's tension when we try to learn Quran. So we're trying to find other options. We found having a male teacher really effective for our boys, especially because that male figure had that kind of that sense of authority and that sort of manly dominance in the classroom setting, which meant that our boys really did give the Quran the respect that it's due. However, there's also the balance of online lessons versus in-person learning. So that's a whole other topic, you know, how online lessons can be used. So we definitely have benefited from them, but it has some advantages and disadvantages, and it's something that I want to touch on, inshallah, in a future video. So in terms of these lessons, now that a child has completed the Qaida, what are they doing with Quran? Our minimum requirement for our children is that they complete reading through the Quran all the way through with someone who's qualified. So at the moment that is their ustad in Egypt. And as well as this, we want our children to memorize as a minimum requirement Juz Amma, which is the last 30th portion of the Quran, all the way from Surah An-Naba to Surah An-Nas. Beyond that, if children want to do full hifz of Quran, we really don't push our kids to do this. I know some parents like to create a regime and a kind of structure for children, but I find that if I over push it, you know, I haven't memorized the Quran myself. If I try to overly push that on my kids, it might create resentment. So we try to create an environment within our homeschool community where our children are exposed to people who have memorized the Quran. They go to events where, you know, if someone has completed the khitmah of the hifz and they get some kind of certificate, we'll go along to that and support those people in our community. Our children actively attend Taraweeh prayers with us, so they are inspired to learn about Quran. But beyond memorizing Juz Amma, we don't really push them to do any more unless they want to and they're showing that interest. So at the moment, my oldest son has finished memorizing Juz Amma, and he's learning some of the other surahs from the Quran. So he's learned a few from Juz 29, and then he's learning Surah Kahf. And then my second son is currently sort of midway through memorizing Juz Amma. To help my children while they were memorizing the short surahs of the Quran and to kind of help them to connect with the meaning of what they were reciting, I ended up writing a book called The Quran Chapter by Chapter. Having been a Quran teacher for adults for some years prior to having children, and then also teaching Tajweed to kids and adults, you know, since I've had children, I found that there was a big gap in the market for a resource that made, you know, just the central essence and the core meaning of each surah really accessible and simple. And so I wrote this, The Quran Chapter by Chapter, and in that book I include each chapter with a brief explanation about what the chapter title means, why it's called that, and some details about the chapter. So for example, let's say a child is memorizing Juz Amma, they're memorizing Surah Al-Buruj. You know, Al-Buruj means the constellations, so I've got a nice visual there which is really engaging for them. And then I've got a one-page sort of summary about, okay, why is there a chapter talking about the constellations? What is the kind of central meaning of that surah in particular? So this is a great resource for my children. My boys actually had like quite a hand to play in when I was writing this. So I started writing this when my eldest son was about 8 and he was memorizing Juz Amma, and he helped me pick some of the pictures for these. So for example, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, right? So they've helped me to design this book, and so it's really kid friendly. I've just hit a milestone, alhamdulillah, of 1,000 copies of this have been sold. So it's been a really, really eye-opening experience, not only helping my children to learn the Quran, to understand the Quran, but also developing my business and making these books and the accompanying flashcards more accessible to the wider public, alhamdulillah. So the way that we use this resource in our family is that when our children are memorizing a new surah, we will sit down together and read through that particular chapter in the Quran chapter by chapter, so that when, for example, it's al-humaza, wailul likulli humazatil lumaza, right? What does al-humaza actually mean, and why are they memorizing this kind of these Arabic words, and what is the general gist of that surah? This is great because it's a nice family bonding activity. The summaries are just one page. It's quite good for nice bedtime reading. And the younger children also, so I have a 5-year-old daughter, she can also kind of listen in and start getting familiar with the surah names. In addition to this, we use the accompanying flashcards, which I've also designed, which take each one of these 114 surahs, and for each of them we have a particular picture and then the surah number on the back. So this allows children to kind of, in a physical handheld format, get familiar with the names of the surahs in the Quran. For example, this is all of Juz Amma that I've taken out of the box. So the box contains all the 114 surahs, and I've taken the Juz Amma out of the box, and it comes with this ring as well. And so, for example, my child will say, okay, they're memorizing Surah Quraysh, and when they recite Li ila fi Quraysh, they know that this is to do with the Quraysh tribe. You know, I've given the camels to give them that feel of Arabia. And we can go through, and you can even use the surah numbers to test children. Okay, which surah is 101? It's Al-Qari'ah. And the colors help to reinforce the meanings. Al-Alaq, meaning the blood clot, for example, you know, it's red. These things help children to visually and, you know, in a deeper sense of connecting with the Quran, actually understand the meaning of what they're reciting. So my kids are really enjoying these. It's helping them to learn the meanings of all of the surahs in the Quran. It also means that now that it's Ramadan, we're going to Taraweeh prayers, and our children actually are connecting with what's being recited, and they know that, okay, tonight it's going to be Surah Al-Furqan, for example, or Surah Al-Shu'ara. They know that that's 25, 26, and they're preparing for that ahead of time. So my older boys use these cards more for kind of structured memorization practice, whereas my younger 5-year-old daughter, and then I also have a almost 3-year-old toddler who likes to just play with them, just to look at the pictures. Oh, let's see which surahs have got animal pictures on them, for example. So this is a great Eid gift for family and friends, and I've actually got a Eid al-Fitr sale on 30% off of these cards, so do check that out. I'll leave the link in the description box below. There are also so many other Quran resources out there that we haven't particularly used, but I've been seen recommended. They're online. There's a lovely Instagrammer called Teaching Two Little Kids, Sister Anjum, and she creates lots of fantastic resources where you can, you know, write out the practice of the Quran, and she's got Arabic practice sheets. So I really recommend those. We also like to play Quran recitation on a Bluetooth speaker in our house. So we put this on Fridays, for example. We'll listen to Surah Kahf together. And doing this regularly means that you can try out different reciters, and your children will get familiar with the names of Mishari al-Afasi or al-Husari or Abdul Basit, and, you know, they will develop a feeling like, okay, they actually know about Quran recitation, they know what the reciters from the Haram al-Sharif in Mecca actually sounds like, or maybe they've got a kind of a particular affinity towards the Egyptian style or the Sudanese style. And so it's great just to have that regularly on listen, you know, when you're just cooking or doing anything else around the house, as long as people are giving the Quran its respect and reverence while it's being played. Sometimes my older boys will also gather with some other homeschool families. My husband, sometimes if he's available, they will sit together and read Surah Kahf together in the masjid, which is a really beautiful communal practice and helps to strengthen that bond of community. As they grow older and as they grow in maturity and can appreciate more complex ideas, we'll be introducing different resources to them, inshallah, as they grow. So, you know, thinking about tafsir, about the explanation of the Quran, or memorizing more complex sections of the text. The idea is that the journey with Quran is a lifelong one, and what we want to do at this young age is nurture a love for it and create the ability of our children to connect with the Quran and to create this lifelong journey for themselves, so that they know how to study and they know how to connect and they have a lifelong love for the Quran, inshallah. So these are the main ways that we incorporate Quran learning into our homeschool. I'd love to hear from you if you have other suggestions, ways that you love to incorporate the Quran into your homeschool and your general daily life. If you found this video inspiring or helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and inshallah share it with other families and friends who might find it beneficial. Until next time, Ramadan Kareem, Eid Mubarak and happy homeschooling. Assalamu alaikum.